I bring this picture here. I want you to meet Bernard, Frank, Giuseppe, and this is over in Brussels. And I show this picture to tell you exactly what I do for a living, or have done for many years. I get a phone call from an art director or a designer, tells me about the person, the company that I'm working for. I get on a plane, I fly over to Brussels. I meet this man who's in charge of HR. It's pouring rain. Brussels doesn't look that great this time of year, and I have to go and make a portrait of him. This is over in Sydney, and I'll show a number of these images here to just give you an idea where my life was going before I kind of stopped the train a little bit. Working on an annual report for McDonald's. This is over in Japan. This is the company that changed everything for me. This is working for the Broad Institute in Cambridge, one of the largest genomic research centers in the world. And I was working on an annual report for them, and working with some people there that literally will change things for our lives, I hope, but certainly our children's lives. I know you recognize the baby here. Funny part about this story is I went down to Wall Street thinking that this was going to be an incredibly creative company and everything, and it was just an investment company. But I did get him to take this picture. It's one of my neighbors. This is General George Casey, who's head of the staff of Army. The person you saw a story about a little bit earlier today, her. This is over at MIT. Project I just work on for Northeastern, person who works on extreme temperatures. Ocean spray. So essentially I only photograph people. So working on photographing people, I have to, within a very short time, come in there and find something about them that is interesting, that I could take that back to the ads or the printed pieces, and hopefully they would resonate with the people that I work with. It's a person over at Northeastern that works on Homeland Defense. This was shot in the middle of the winter, and that was not Photoshopped. That was a bird that flew in there. I do a lot of medical work here. This was down in Providence at Hasbro. One of the earlier photographs I took, I just enjoyed this. I think she had no idea what was about to come. It's kind of haunting, isn't it? This is at Dana-Farber. So started working with the Broad, sometimes working with certain companies, it kind of multiplies. All of a sudden you go from the Broad, it's a very incestuous town where there are people at the Broad from MIT, from Harvard, from Dana-Farber, from Children's, from the Brigham, and all of a sudden you start getting, it starts weaving its way around, and all of a sudden somebody's asking you, would you work for this group that might be the Senior Hebrews organization, or it might be a hospice project. And all of a sudden my 60s guilt starts creeping in about that, I'm on this very fast train going along the way. And I have a friend of mine I grew up in the Bronx, and I have a friend there who called me up one day and he wanted to invite me to his third wedding. And I said to him, I don't think I could come. I'm very busy, I'm traveling doing this. And he said, Len, other than myself, you might be the only person who's been to all 3 weddings. And so I said to him, I just don't think I can do it. And he said, let me tell you something. You're like a train wreck. You're getting from place A to place Z, and it's as fast as you can do it. And he says, it's not about that. It's about how many stops you get off on. And that really hit me. I didn't go to his wedding, but it did hit me. This is some research project that was done for the Broad, man working on heart disease, I'm sorry. This is the one that just hit me recently. I'll get to where I'm going to in a minute, but this is Dorothy. I did a project for hospice. Pretty much everybody that I photographed over this 2-week period time was not with us after about a month's worth of time. The connection you make with the people you're photographing is one thing also, but it's also the extended family that wrote me letters or talked to me later on about that this was the last picture that was taken about them, that you showed great dignity in them, and in this case, there was one other person I photographed. He was an old biker, and I photographed him on his Harley, even though his family didn't want me to do that. And they said, at his funeral, they had that photograph of his Harley. So I kind of felt like, I did him a favor there, photographing and disregarding what his family wanted him to do, and he did me a favor. And so it started changing the way I was looking at things. And this is where everything changed. This is Carlos Slim, and at the time that I went and photographed him, he was the richest man in the world. I'm nervous about doing this. I mean, I photographed famous people before, but you're talking about the richest man in the world. So I have zero access to him in advance, something I usually like to do. I can Google him and look at him on YouTube and everything, but they are telling me pretty much like a scene, you're going to come in, you're going to go out, the person behind you comes in, he goes out, you're going to have no time. I said he has a museum that he has there because he has one of the largest private art collections in the world, and he has donated this museum and the artwork to Mexico City. And he said, nope, I'm sorry, we don't want to bother him. His time is very valuable. Just go in there and do what they tell you. So I'm sitting, I have an opportunity to go and photograph this man. I don't want to blow it, but I also don't want to upset my client. So I did not know what to do. So anyway, this is the other person that changed my life. This is Peter Johnson. I have a neighbor, Charlie Johnson, who I play golf with, and this is his son, who my daughter has known for years in Best Buddies when she did this in high school. I'm getting around to it. This is the place that they had set up for me to photograph him. I wasn't going to be happy with this. I said, how can I ever explain to people that I went and photographed him and I just photographed him against this wall? So we had a conversation and I walked over to him. He'd come out of a meeting about a half hour late. Comes out of the meeting, goes and stands up against the wall, and I'm supposed to take his picture. So I walk over to him and I said, Senor Slim, do you mind? Maybe put your hands in your pocket, maybe cross your legs. So he says something in Spanish and everybody cracks up, including the people that have things underneath their jackets, protecting him. And I walk over to my interpreter and I said, what did he say? And he said, look at this guy from Boston. He's been here 5 minutes and he has his hands in my pocket. It changed everything. He cracked up. He said, Len, what do you want me to do? We walked into his office. He had this amazing piece of artwork there. He wasn't going to allow me to take him out of there, but he had an amazing piece of artwork. He let me take this portrait. I don't know if, can I go backwards? Quite a difference. Anyway, he asked me, have I been to the museum? I said, I have not been to the museum yet. He said, we're leaving tomorrow. We've been here for 4 days, but we're leaving tomorrow. He said, let me go, one of these, a couple people come over, they open up the museum for me to go to it that evening. But before I leave, he comes over and he gives me a piece of paper. And he says, I want you to give this to your children. And it's a piece of paper that he says, my advice to the children of our world. Now here's a man who's the richest man in the world, and he's talking to me about my children and his philosophy on how we bring them back and how we play it forward and how we leave them with more than what we found. And it just was an incredibly profound effect on me that he took that time. So I came back and I met with this person, Charlie Johnson, who introduced me to the people from Special Olympics. And I said, I just need to do something else. I need to change this direction of this train. And he said, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce you to people of Special Olympics. I went to them. I said, I'd love to take a portrait series. I'd love to produce a book about it, and maybe that would do some fundraising for you. So we set up a 2-day shoot out in Marlborough. And this is a guy named Jay here, who, to meet some of these special needs athletes, he brought me into his room. He showed me that he does his own laundry. He showed me where everything was stacked, where the clothes was. He told me what I could touch and what I couldn't touch. He showed me where his medals were. And as soon as he realized that I was just as comfortable with him as I was with Carlos Slim, everything changed. So there's a series of images here that I did for this. And by the way, these images were used. We made large 5-foot prints of them. And I had the vendors that I used, different clients, donate prints. It was shown at the ICA. It was a fantastic show, and they raised a lot of money. These are 2 sisters. And an interesting thing with special needs, the siblings are so connected to their sisters and brothers that they won't go anywhere without them, and they will make sure and protect them with everything they do. This guy believed that he was from England. He was from Massachusetts and had memorized every Monty Python movie there was. So I decided to shoot him doing the silly walks. I love this stereotype here. Here is or I should say a breaking of a stereotype. You know, he looks like he's from a tough neighborhood and everything like that. He's the opposite. He was wonderful. So I photographed him the way he came to the shoot. This is Jake here, and his whole shoot changed as soon as I let him bring his Toy Story doll on the set. Everything changed from there. 100 years old. Special Olympic. You can see the muscle definition in him. A swimmer, I mean, the feats that they have achieved are just amazing. So this is part of the show that we had at the ICA. We decided to shoot it and show it like it was at a photo studio, and they were very large prints. And the best part about this is the special needs athletes came to the show and would have their pictures taken with their families next to their pictures. Which brings me back to the next one. And you saw this show today, but this was at the Friendship Home. Living down the South Shore, we spoke to the people at the Friendship Home, and being that it was about friends, I decided to do this series about friends. And this is the part of the series that raised $400,000 in one night at Lombardo's in Randolph. There were 800 people that came to this show for one night. Again, you know, there's different levels of communication that you can have with special needs. Some, you know, you could talk to, some just, you know, kind of stand there and they're communicating their own way to you, maybe not verbally. So again, you know, after years of photographing CEOs, executives, research people, hospitals, you learn to get a feeling of how you're going to connect with them. And very much like children, they know if you're comfortable with them. They know immediately if you're comfortable with them. If you're not, it's not going to end up being a great shot. He thinks he's Elvis. I love this photograph. They were really connected, best friends. And this whole series was about friends. This was an interesting one because the guy on the left kept taking away the microphone from the one who wanted to sing. So we decided to, I don't really remember both of their names, but we decided at that point that we'd ask him if he could jump up and down, and that ended the microphone problem. A lot of psychology in this. By the way, I majored in psychology. Here they were teaching me what Zumba was. I didn't even know what that was. They are brother and sister. You saw a picture. They were in one of the pictures earlier tonight. They were so sweet. This is the last picture. This is Peter, the one I started with, and we produced books that were given out to the 800 people that were there, and again, that increased the promotion and the name recognition and the money that came in, and this picture means a lot to me, so thank you very much.